All right. So in a previous video I just built a while back, I got a couple of questions and comments. So this one's coming at how do you connect the emotional triggers to pain to close deals, right? Because I talked about the 4 key emotions on why somebody would actually buy something from you. And so I'm going to take that now and I'm going to go one step deeper with you. So this is a great video if you need to know how to connect the emotional triggers to close deals. Let's go for a run. What's up, FlowChat connector? Sean back at you with another high ticket tune-up. Well, bam! Hope you're doing really good. Don't forget to smash that like button. Share this out to somebody who needs to get better at sales and the DM game. And of course, if you find a lot of value throughout this, please smash that subscribe button. Yes, would love that. Okay, today we're talking about something I think is really valuable, and it's actually taking the theory that I talked about in a previous video of connecting or understanding what the 4 key emotions are on why somebody would jump over the action threshold. That's where they give you the credit card and buy your stuff. And so what I wanted to do is just take a little bit of a deeper dive and walk through this because I think it's really, really valuable for everybody watching. So here's a quick recap of the 4 buying emotions that we have, right? In order from most to least. Number 1, you say moving away from pain in the present. Pain in the present is the number 1 reason why somebody would buy something from you right now. Pain in the future, moving away from pain in the future would be like, hey, the storm is coming, the winter is coming. You better take action now so that you're not out in the cold later. Hey, you don't have as much firewood outside of your house right now. You better go spend all this time in the hot summertime chopping down all the firewood so that you don't have to threat or sweat about chopping wood in the wintertime because it's cold and nobody wants to chop wood. That's like moving away from pain in the future. It's a little bit more difficult to close a deal when you're selling to pain in the future than it is pain in the present. Number 3 is moving towards pleasure in the present. Pleasure in the present is like, hey, you have a sugar rush right now, eat this candy bar. And they eat the candy bar and they get this hit of sugar rush and they feel really good right now. Again, people will buy because of that, but it's not near as impactful or powerful as moving away from pain in the present. And then the last one is moving towards pleasure in the future. People will buy to move towards pleasure in the future. Hey, the summertime's coming. I would love to go boating and get a tan. I'm going to go buy a boat. Now that does happen. And that is one of the emotions of that why people would buy. But the number 1 important thing to remember is most everybody that wants to buy now is moving away from a pain that they're experiencing right now. Okay. So we went through that in the last video in a little bit more detail. And here's the idea. When you take that pain in the present, and I use this analogy of wasp. Remember, I use these emotional trigger words like, are you worried that this is happening in your business, Mrs. Prospect? Are you annoyed because this is happening in your business? That's the A. Are you struggling because you're going through this right now in your business? Or are you pissed off that this continues to happen to you each and every day right now? And when we use those types of trigger words, instead of saying, what's your pain point, like most traditional salespeople say, people will immediately react and they will immediately say, oh my God, yes. And so this leads us down this path of pain in the present. So what I'm about to talk to you now is how do we connect getting that pain in the present to taking it to an impact? And so there's 3 levels of impact. When you say that first question, hey, what's the big thing holding you back? Or what are you frustrated? Are you frustrated with this? Are you struggling with that? Are you annoyed this is going on? And they say, yes, that is level 1 pain. That's a surface problem that they're saying they're having in their business. Our job is then to take that surface problem, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it, and move it into a business impact or the reason for the surface problem. What is business impacted because of this problem now? And then, of course, how does that impact you personally? And if we can hang a little bit longer in this pain conversation, most people don't because they're not used to doing it and they feel kind of like, ooh, this is something new but it's juicy and it's good and it's the thing that will close more deals. If you get good at this, all the other things this is like the one big domino. When you push this one over, everything else gets better, right? So the objective is to take a surface indicating problem that they're saying, hey, I need more leads. Hey, I'm struggling with tech overwhelm. Hey, I don't have a good reporting system. Hey, I have whatever their pain now that they're talking about. we have to understand before we say, I can solve that, like most traditional people would jump in and say, we need to understand a little bit more about why and how it's impacting their business. And even if it's really a big problem for them or not, and then how does that affect them personally? And when we get to that level of pain, guess what? You're going to close almost every single deal. So let's go through how to get there, right? Because I think a lot of people struggle with connecting the dots and like figuring this out. And how do you connect the emotional trigger to the pain to close deals? So when you first start a sales conversation or you're in the DMs, these are great messaging sequences that you can use. Number one, you can say, again, we always start in the DM land of start with a compliment that's statistically proven to give you more response than anything. Say, hey, you're kicking ass in the world. Just want to say, keep it up. I'll spin back a little bit more when I have a bit more time to continue connecting with you. Looking forward to the future and great job. Keep it up in your world. That's a great type of compliment that you can send to somebody and you'll usually get an engagement back, right? Because the first hinge point of a DM convo is making sure you get engagement. And then they come back and you say, hey, I'm back like 2 days later. And you say, I bet you didn't expect me to come back. I'm curious, why did you get into what you do? This is now the second hinge point of a DM conversation where we're doing the transition. We're usually going to have 2 or 3 questions that we can ask to move them into this place of pain or this place of actually taking the next step. This is an easy question that you can ask. You say, hey, why'd you get into what you do? And this lets them share about them. People love to talk about them. They like to talk about their own stories. Give them space. This question does that, right? And then you get an answer. And then you come back and say, oh, well, that's awesome. Like, I love why you're doing what you're doing. Like, where are you actually trying to take the thing? Like, what's the goal? And now, again, we haven't dove in as a salesperson. We're just being curious and asking a lot of questions to learn a little bit more about their motivational behavior, about why what they're doing, what they're doing. Right. And then they're going to come back in the messages or on the phone and they're going to say something valuable to you. So write that down. And then we go to what we call the speed bump. This is great. This is the speed bump question that will serve you in every DM conversation and every sales call you take. You say, that makes sense. I love where you're trying to go. What's the biggest speed bump holding you back? And right then and there, you have now elicited out. These are better for DM conversations, right? What's the biggest speed bump holding you back right now? And they're going to give you pain in the present, right? Now, most traditional salespeople, by the time they've asked these 3 questions, they're going to jump down your throat and try to sell you something. But then the prospect feels like, whoa, you're trying to sell me. This feels salesy and icky. I'm out. They're looking to build a relationship with you. They're looking to actually develop a conversation and do something more than just you solving their problem. And so if you keep the fangs in your mouth and you don't stick them in after you ask this question, you're going to be better off. Here is the next thing that you say right after this. We use this thing called the pain funnel. So they say, my biggest speed bump, Sean, is not having enough leads. Okay, let's just take that as an example. Well, you turn around and say, tell me more about that. I didn't think you had that problem. There's the last thing in my mind because your brand is strong. Your messaging seems on point. Like, tell me more about not having enough leads. And then they're going to say some stuff to you, right? This is great. And now you can come back and be like, well, like specific, I still don't get it. Like specifically, like, can you give me an example of like that? What do you mean you're not getting enough leads, right? And you can skip over this question or you can use it depending on where you're at in the conversation. This is actually a better use case when you're on the phone, but in DMs, it does work too. Of course, you say, tell me more about that. Can you be more specific and give me examples? The second question of the day. Now, these questions were designed not by me, but by psychologists who know human mental psychology and why it works in this order. Specifically, if you ask these questions in this order, you will get that person down to personal impact. That's what I'm walking you through right now. So you say, give me, be a bit more specific. And then you come back and you say this one, how long has this been a problem? How long has not having enough leads been an issue for you? And the prospect's going to be like, well, shoot. It actually just happened recently, or it's been going on the whole time. Now, what I will tell you is this, the pro tip here, the shorter the timeline, the more painful it can feel for a prospect. So if you're in that position where you're having the conversation and you can get to them where they say, no, this just happened. Like it happened today, or it happened last week, or it happened last month, or last 3 months, right? You're going to have much higher probability and percentage of closing that deal now because they're experiencing the number one reason of why somebody would buy, pain in the present. If it's something that's been going on for legacy, right? As an example, you have a manufacturing company and you say something like, oh, well, how long has that been a problem with like on-time delivery? Oh man, like that's just been forever. And we actually have a process now of when it happens, like how we deal with it. So it's not a big deal to us anymore because we have a Band-Aid solution, even though it was a big problem in the first place, right? But it's been going on for so long. If they've moved on, it might not be able to, like really get the impact that you're looking for. So how long? What we're looking for is a pretty short time window, last 30 days, last 60 days, last 90 days. Anything less than 6 months, usually you're going to have a really, really strong case to closing that deal. Important. And then you say this one, hey, what have you tried to actually do to solve getting leads? And then you sit there and wait. Right. And you can do this in chat, or you can do this. This is typically what I teach my setters is go this far in the pain funnel and then book a call. Like that's kind of the move, right? Because when they get to this place, what have you tried to do about that? And did it work? Right. So each one, he's like, so have you tried SEO? Yeah, I did. I tried that. Well, did that work? Right. And then they say, well, no, it didn't. And here's why. Oh my gosh. Like, have you hired a coach? Yeah, I have. Oh, did that work? Right. And so I cycle through a number of these things that somebody might have tried on their own before I even do anything salesy. Now I have such good rapport with this prospect, whether I'm in the DMs or on the call, it doesn't matter. Like, right. And then what I do sometimes if I'm on the phone specifically, so at that point, if I'm setting in the DMs, I'll say, oh my gosh, you need to talk to my specialist salesperson name. Here's their link. I'll fill them in on the conversation. You just let me know when you book. This is going to be a really valuable conversation. I just know it is already. And then that will get a call booked almost every single time. But when you're on the phone, you take this one a little bit deeper, right? And you say, well, man, you hired a coach. How much did that cost you? And now you're starting to dig into a little bit of budget, understanding what they've been open to spending in the past. And they say, well, I tried this, it didn't work, and I spent this much money on it. Oh my gosh, did you read a book? Yeah, I read a book. I tried stuff out of the book. It didn't work. How much did that book it cost you in money? Oh, it was $10. Okay, cool. How much investment in energy and time did you put in? Oh, hours of time. Oh, what's an hour of time worth to you? Now you see how I'm starting to quantify the whole conversation. When they realize that this is a big problem, they've actually tried a lot of things. That's what I'm doing, is I'm giving them clarity in this part of the conversation, right? And so this, how much do you think does this cost you? Is very, very valuable question. Then you drop to the next one. This is where we go from business impact straight down to personal impact. Shoot, man. Well, Mrs. Prospect, you've tried, you read a book, you hired a coach, you went to a masterclass, you bought a mastermind, you bought these other 3 programs. They've all cost you all this much money and nothing's resulted. You still have this problem with leads, right? Like, how do you feel about that? And that prospect's going to be like, Sean, this effing sucks. Shoot. I can totally relate to you, Mrs. Prospect. Let me ask you this question. Have you given up trying to deal with the problem? Well, no, that's why I'm talking to you. And you can hear it in their voice. They've emotionally gotten charged. This proves to you that you've taken out of logic and pushing this person into emotion, and they're frustrated, they're annoyed, they're worried, they're pissed off, they're ticked off that all the stuff they've tried about getting more leads just hasn't worked. And no, they haven't given up, right? And they want to solve it. That's why they might be talking to you. Again, this is just a leads example because you can do it with anything. And here's the pro tips here. Number 1, ask these questions in this exact order and go one question, one answer. One question, one answer. Do not try to throw all the questions at once. If you do, you will mess it up. Okay. So very valuable there. Secondly, I mentioned this earlier, is like, what have you tried and did that work? I think what the thing around that piece is the more data, the more conversation you can have. What have you tried? Did you try this? Did you try this? Did you try this? When you start recommending things, you become the trusted advisor to that prospect. And they're like, gosh, I've tried all the things that you said. It's still not working. Like, you must know the answer. Because I once learned from one of my coaches, Alex Sharfin, he said, if you can describe the problem that your prospect has and the things they might have tried to do to solve it better than they can, they will immediately assume that you have the answer to the problem. Right? Let me say that again. When you can describe the problem that your prospect has better than they can describe it in their own mind, they assume that you automatically have the answer to their problem. Very, very powerful there. Think about that for a second, okay? So when I say, what have you tried? And they say this, and then I recommend a couple of other things, I now am the trusted advisor. I now am a confidant that they can talk to about other problems. And this separates me from being a traditional, hey, I can solve that. Here, buy my stuff and we'll fix it out. It's no, 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 no. Like I am empathizing. I'm relating to you and trying to go down and walk in your shoes so that you feel heard as a prospect. When you feel heard as a prospect, that's when the trust goes up. And that's when the action threshold drops down, the buying resistance drops, and that action threshold line, here comes the credit card, right? So spend some more time and asking, what if you tried to do that and did that work? Cycle in that one a couple of times. That one's really valuable. And here's the last thing. Once you get a no to that very last question that I mentioned, have you given up trying to deal with this problem? They say, no, Sean, I'm pissed. That's why I'm talking to you, right? When you get that, no, Sean, I'm pissed. I'm trying to work with you. I'm trying to talk with you about this. We've got them emotionally where we need them. And so we can do one of two things. If one pain point is enough for you to close this deal, go for the close at this point, right? Well, shoot, I solved this 7 days a week. This is something I knock out of the park. I just got one question for you, Mrs. Prospect. Like, am I somebody that you'd like to work with? Because I know I can serve you and I know I can get a transformation in your business. Well, yeah, Sean, like you listen to me, understand me. I've gotten an emotional close. And then I just move into the logical close of budget buying process. And then the next steps to close the deal and the next steps. Like that's it, right? So that's how our selling system actually works, because we get somebody so involved emotionally with us. And our job is to take them from the logic into the emotion and the pain of their own thing, and then leave them really frustrated and hanging there. And then we say, well, look, I solved this 7 days a week. This problem is pretty serious in your business. And I've solved it with this person and this person, this. We can start using a lot of stuff like that. Like, I want to work with you. Am I somebody you want to work with? That is the emotional close that you can use right at the end of this section. Now, that's one way you can go. You can go directly for the close. The other way you can go is if your higher ticket price point. So if you're selling something at 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50, 100, $1 million, 100K, $1 million, then what you might need is you might need to find more than one particular pain or problem that you solve for your prospect. So when you get down to, have you given up trying to deal with this problem? They say, no, Sean, I'm really frustrated. Okay, cool. I'm going to make the note of that. Let's move on. So I know you're struggling with leads, Mrs. Prospect. Let me ask you, are you frustrated with trying to build a team to help you solve that? Oh yeah, Sean, that's my other problem. Okay, well, let me just tell me more about that one, because I want to ask a few more questions about that. And what I've done is I've gone from pain number 1, and now I moved into pain number 2, and I go through the exact same pain questions over and over and over. What have you tried? How did that work? How long has this been going? Like, how much do you think this has cost you? How do you actually feel about building a team? Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. And this conversation is so deep in the pain part of the chat that you're going to be like, this person, the prospect, is going to fall in love with you just from this part of the conversation. I promise, because it happens to me on a daily basis. Okay. And then you get to the last question. We haven't given up trying to solve that one, do you either? Right. So you're like, we know you need leads. We know you need a team now. And now if you're like, well, I'm a done for you service that does that, we should talk about that. That's a pretty valid place to try to go for a close. Now, if it's a higher ticket, we got to go back and get a third pain problem indicator point and bring them down this pain funnel again. So we go back. Okay, cool. You're struggling with leads. You don't want to build a team. I'm wondering, are you overwhelmed with all the tech choices that you could use to actually create these solutions? Yes, Sean, I'm so pissed off. I've tried 10 different techs and then, oh my gosh, tell me more about this. Now what I've done is I've continued to stack pain, right? We always talk about, if you watch Russell Brunson, the stack is the offer, but there's a pain stack that we can create. If we can stack one pain on the next, on the next, on the next, and then now more pain stacked, more budget availability to solve all of the problems, especially if you're the provider that can do that. And this is where most people miss it in their sales conversations and in their DMs, because they just don't do this stuff. So the pain funnel, hyper valuable. Take a picture of this. Let's move on. That is the lesson for today. And it's exactly how you connect the emotion into the conversation so you can leverage and close the deal, right? Last thing I want to share is this. If you are in the DM game and you're messaging outbound, or you're getting inbound and you're messaging back, or you're posting content, try to connect with the likes, here's some scripts that you can use in the DMs. Just go to scripts.flowchat.com and get yourself a copy of this, because I promise you it will be hyper valuable. And by the way, if you want to look at our software, we do sell FlowChat. FlowChat's an incredible tool. We've redesigned the way that people DM for business. And we've added in some data bits that you're going to go crazy for. And soon coming is something called Flow Voice, which is a conversational bot that will actually make calls for you on your behalf with your brand messaging and everything inside that, and book appointments for you. That is coming very soon. We're past our beta trials of this. We're into picking up our first couple of clients that are using the service, and I'm really excited for the outcome, and the preliminary results are insane. So if you want to know more about Flow Data, or Flow Voice as we're calling it, look in the description or the comments below, or the description, and book a time with our team and come check it out. It's totally worth it. So with that said, you've just been tuned up. I thought this was a really good one. I think where most people get it wrong when it comes to selling and sales. And so if you stick to this process just in this one part of your conversations, whether DMs or face-to-face, belly-to-belly, one-on-one, you will do well. I promise, because I've done it. It's helped me to close over $130 million personally in my own career as a sales professional. And I think it can help you too. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, like this video if you got some value out of it. And of course, share this with somebody else that needs to learn this, right? If you've had a bad experience with a salesperson, or maybe you have a salesperson on your team that needs some support, send this video to them, share it over to them, because it will be really valuable. I know you want to do that, right? You want to, like, I, as a buyer, as a prospect, always want to have that. It's really hard to be a sales pro and then go and talk with a traditional salesperson that tries every trick in the book that you've read, right? You want somebody that's going to understand you, that gives you voice, and this is the way to do it. So again, share this out to somebody that could use it. And with that said, I can't wait to see you next time. Until then, go FlowChat. Talk to you later.